Hello, everyone. This is Mollie Carmichael here today. We have another great guest today, Bert Selva. He's the president and chief executive officer for Shea Homes. And for those of you who may or may not know Shea Homes, they're the largest privately held home builder in the U.S. They built over about 3,000 homes last year. Terrific builder, terrific family. It's a family-owned business. Shea Homes has been recognized for so many different things, including outstanding builder awards, including Builder of the Year, one of America's best builders. There's many more. They're also one of the oldest privately owned construction companies with iconic works like building the Hoover Dam and the Golden Gate Bridge. How's that for quality? Today, they build new homes for all generations with Shea Homes and Trilogy. They also build apartments, retail centers, and commercial with Shea properties as well. Bert himself, he has so many words, it's hard to count. He's CEO of the Year, Hall of Fame. He's received the Humanitarian Lifetime Achievement Award. He's received awards with City of Hope. He's been on the Homemade Board, so much more. He's just a great guy, and you'll hear from him yourself. So let's hear the rest from Bert about his career, his life, and what it truly takes to be an inspirational leader. So please join me in welcoming Bert Selva. Welcome, everyone. Today, we are here with Bert Selva with our Inspirational Leadership series. We're excited to have you, Bert. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Mollie.
Yeah, so we're going to jump in, and I'm going to start with a question I ask everybody right off the bat. And that is, if you were to describe what your role is today at Shea, what do you do every day?
What do I do every day? Well,
Yeah.
First of all, my title is president and CEO of Shea Homes, and we build in 11 states under the brands Shea Homes and Trilogy. Our Trilogy is our active adult, our active lifestyle division. Mm-hmm. And I am blessed or fortunate to run a company and manage and work with some of the most talented people I've ever met that are really good people and are really good at what they do. And so that's kind of what I do every day.
You know, I've heard the most amazing things, and I personally have had some experiences with them, but I've heard the Shea family is so nice. And just, you know, I've seen them different stages throughout our business. Uh-huh. But I've heard the greatest things about working there, and obviously great things about you as well. But what's it like working for a family-owned business?
It's really amazing. It's incredible. You know, Mollie, I've worked for public company before, public builder before. I did consulting years ago, so I saw a lot of businesses. Mm-hmm. And what I love about Shea is, first of all, the family is amazing. They're probably the most humble people I've met, incredibly successful, but amazingly humble. And
genuine is a word, I think, too, right?
Genuine, absolutely. And super high integrity, which is something that I think is important in a leader, obviously.
Me too.
I tried to pride myself on that, but I think the other thing about the family that's really different, that I love about the company is, first of all, they give me the autonomy to run the business, which is great, but we're just very aligned, right? We both have the same interests. We both look at the business long-term. We think about the business in terms of our customers, our people, our employees. And I think if you ask people throughout the company, you'll hear that. And the other real unique thing about us, a bit of a unicorn, is that we're very large and we're private, and we've got a smaller family type culture, right? That everybody knows each other. We try not to get too bureaucratic, yet we've got capital to go do big deals, and we compete with all of the publics in all of our markets. And so it's a unique opportunity, and I absolutely love it.
Well, we're gonna talk about Shea in a little bit, but I want to get back to you. So we're going to do a little bit of a rewind and kind of go back to Bert Selva when he was younger. Tell me a little bit about, and we're going to just start with another sort of question, like go back to when you were young. Okay. And I always use I don't know why the age 8 comes to mind, but like when you were 8, where did you think you would be when you grew up?
Well, let me start with a little bit of backdrop because I think my parents had some influence. My parents immigrated to the U.S. From, our ancestry's from Spain, but we had a few generations stop in Nicaragua and in Central America. And both my mom and my dad migrated to the States in their 20s, early 30s. And my dad was a practicing doctor in Nicaragua. And so when he came to the US, he not only had to learn the language, but he had to pass the state medical board, and the medical board exams in English. So it was kind of interesting because he didn't become a doctor till he was 47. He didn't open his own business or start making money till he was about 47 years old, which that had an influence on me because when I was 8 years old, back to your question, I thought I wanted to be a doctor because I thought it was so cool that people would come to him from all over. He was super passionate about it. My dad was one of those workaholics. And some people say, well, you didn't see your dad as much or whatever, but I also got it. That's kind of that generation. That's what he did. But I saw the doctor part. I thought I love helping people. I think it's cool that people leave and they're happier when they leave or feel better when they leave or shortly thereafter. And then I saw what, we went through as a family. I've got 4 brothers, 5 boys, no girls in our family. So
that's
a lot
my
of
dream to have lots of boys. That's so cool.
Mollie, get this picture, a lot of testosterone, 5 boys. Parents don't get home because my mom ran my dad's office, don't get home from work till 7:30 to 8:30 at night. So we'd eat 8 to 9 o'clock every night. So we're out.
I feel like I had 5 boys if you take my husband into account.
And take dogs and pets too. But I had 5 humans. Yeah, 4 brothers. So that was it. But it shifted around that time too, because I also really liked design. I had I don't know what it was, but as a kid, I just loved cool things, whether it was cool cars, cool bikes, watches, home design, just anything. I just really got into design. And I thought someday I'd like to be in business, selling, manufacturing, doing something with those products. And I thought maybe in the auto industry would be that, running a company or doing something like that, because I was just interested in it. And so it was one of those 2 things at that time.
Sure. What brought your parents over here from Spain? What drove them to come here? What was the
Well, my parents were from Nicaragua. Ancestry was from Spain.
Okay.
And but when they came from that, my mom is just a highly motivated individual, and she grew up an only child and wanted to do more. And she had just heard incredible things about the US and the opportunities that existed. And she literally came to the country with $60 and a few outfits. And literally, in fact, ironically, we're Catholic. She went to a convent where some nuns were, and they took her in temporarily for a period of time. And she ended up working at the Hostess Bakery on Folsom at a late night shift. And that's how she started. And then got a job at AAA, the Auto Club. And then my dad decided, I really did like that woman, and followed her to the US a couple years later.
Oh, I love it.
And
he followed her.
Yeah. And he gave up his medical practice there. I mean, he was, in Central America, that was a big deal. And
but he practiced here, right? But he came here and then had to retest and then practiced here. He had to kind of.
Exactly. So that was, so she was a motivator to me, in that she took risks. She worked really hard, and she's one of those people that can make you feel like you could do anything. I always felt as a kid that there was just, it wasn't too much, but it was just, if you put your mind to it, you can. And she was kind of living proof of that, raising 5 boys, moving here with nothing, making the most of it. She really pushed my dad to be successful.
I was going to say, she must have been pretty great.
given your father's journey to come over and,
She did, and she helped him build his practice to be the #1 doctor of Hispanic patients in the Mission District in San Francisco. And so my dad got a late start, but he did really well in his career, and she was a big part of that. So, anyway.
Now, did your mom? I don't know why I'm going to ask you this, but did your mom have any sort of artistic background?
Artistic? No, not really. No. I laugh
definitely do. I mean, having an eye for design, and I know enough about your family to be dangerous. I mean, there's definitely a design and artistic flair there, right? For sure.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for she was really into antiques and Victorian stuff, and would go to the estate auctions in San Francisco, and one piece at a time get really cherished and put that into our house. And by the time we were done, we had some pretty cool stuff that over the years kind of filled a house up. She wasn't somebody that was just going to go down to, a furniture store and buy a bunch of stuff. And so it's kind of fun. And that kind of stuck with me over the years, especially that pride and ownership and just how the little things matter.
So where are you in the lineup of the family?
I have got 2 older brothers and 2 younger brothers.
Wow. So you were ultimately the middle child.
Yes, I was the middle child. And it's kind of interesting, Molly, because I have my older brothers about 6 years older than me, and my younger brothers about 6 years younger.
The closest in age?
Yes. The 2 older were close and the 2 younger were close.
Okay.
So I think my mom kept trying for a girl, which she would have absolutely loved. But it wasn't to be until she got a couple of granddaughters. So, and now she's got great granddaughters. So
that's so sweet. That's really sweet. So fast forward, now your parents get married and there's 5 boys, and you're literally you probably learned to negotiate at a really young age, I have to imagine. Right?
Yes. Yeah, I did.
Without a doubt.
A little bit of strong arming some and a little bit of negotiation with others.
Yeah. Oh my God. I know. So I am one of 7 technically.
Wow.
But I'm the youngest. So talk about learning to negotiate fast, because everything kind of comes downhill for sure. So
Molly, that makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah. You learn to maneuver. It's pretty interesting. But anyways, so let's kind of fast forward. How did you get into home building? Like, tell me about I know you have played a little basketball in your time, so you've got a competitive spirit about you, but how did you get into home building?
The way I got into home building, Molly, was, I went to USC undergrad, loved it, huge USC fan, but when I went back I worked in industry for years. And then when I went back, I kind of pivoted at UCLA, got my MBA, I got in and I wanted to do something different. And my second year, I was doing my thesis at UCLA, and you have to do it. I forget what they called it. There was a name for it. And it was a project, and you had to work with a couple of others. And I was kind of an anomaly at school, myself and actually one other gentleman who I occasionally commuted with. But I lived in South Orange County. My wife worked, and my son was 3 weeks old, and I started a program at UCLA. And for those that aren't from LA or Southern California, that could be anywhere from a 1-hour drive at about 4:30 in the morning when I'd usually leave, and a 3-hour drive home on a Friday afternoon. And I would do that daily. So I was really motivated to find something, just dumb luck, in Orange County to do my second year thesis project. And a guy said, hey, I know some folks over at Rancho Mission Viejo. And he knew Richard O'Neill and Tony Moiso. And he said, do you want to do a project with me there? And so we took it on and we did it. And it was basically a project for Rancho Mission Viejo and for Tony Moiso, who gave me my start in this industry. And what it was is the O'Neill Moiso family owned 42,000 acres of Orange County. Irvine Company was 65,000 as the largest number one and number two developers and landholders in Orange County. And they had just developed Rancho Santa Margarita. And they hadn't really done a look back on what worked, what didn't work, because at that time things were going well. And so I did kind of a consulting project for them for a year. And Mollie, you being a great consultant would probably laugh at whatever that end project. I don't think it was worth the paper it was printed on, but it got me to see. I got to see all aspects of the business. I got to see retail, office, industrial, master plan community, homes. And I really fell in love with two things. One, the home building side was probably number one, and very close behind that was the master plan community of creating place. And so that was really great. And it came in handy later in my career when I ran a community called Highlands Ranch. So that's how I got into it. I got out of school, graduated, and I started talking to home builders, and I ended up working with a gentleman by the name of Dale Stewart at Signature Homes in Orange County, and did that for 5 years, and it was fantastic.
Do you still have the study?
I'm sure it's somewhere.
I would love to read that study. I would love to read it.
Yeah, Mollie, you couldn't pay me enough to get your hands on that.
What would you say your big takeaways are? Like looking back at that, and when I say takeaways, like, what did you kind of like looking back at that? And again, sort of talking to young leaders, people that just want to know you more. What were the things you learned out of that experience?
Are you saying from a real estate standpoint, or
from a real estate standpoint, but also kind of what it took to get through that, part perseverance, and the other part of it is content, and made you better when you went to go work for a builder?
Well, a couple of things. The perseverance was, I think when you get in those situations, like when you have a young kid and you're just in survival mode. I mean, I hate to admit this, but I would go to bed at 1:15, and at 4:15 to 4:30, I was on the freeway driving to UCLA. And I did that for a couple years. And those Fridays,
so hardworking,
and my days off, it felt like, because I'd go down to Rancho Mission Viejo for a few hours, and then we would work from our house, and we'd collaborate on what we saw, what we did, and all that. From a real estate standpoint, what Rancho Mission Viejo has done is just fantastic. We have a lot of great, developers and master plan community developers around the country, but you realize that the time and effort that's put in up front, and really thinking through the details of how are people going to live? How's this going to work? What is it? How's it going to be for the long term? Really pays off, because the more time and effort you spend up front, the better. And I think it's really important that every subsequent community learns from what worked and didn't work there, so that your last community is always your best, but you're proud of that first one. And so I think it's that. I think it's respecting people for what it is, because you come in and you're young, you're getting your MBA, and I felt like, okay, I've learned a lot. And there was stuff I saw, and I go, I would probably do this a little bit different, but at least I had the common sense to keep that to myself, and to really understand what they're doing. And once you understand the thought, the logic, why it went into it, it makes a lot more sense. And so one of the things is to not pass judgment so quickly.
Right.
I think that happens a lot with people go, why'd they do this? This is dumb, or that's dumb, on whatever they see. But somebody put time and effort in it. Now, some stuff I see, I go, ooh, I don't know what someone was thinking. But in places like that, they really hit it out of the park. And so it was quite easy to do, because everything was good. The other thing you realize is cycles in this business really matter, right? You could have the greatest product on earth, but if it's the wrong time in the cycle, it's not going to work. And you could have product that's mediocre, and in a good market, it sucks because there's no inventory. And so it's just something that I guess there was a lot of lessons learned. I think humility is one of them, that you go in and the old saying that nobody learned by talking. God gave you one mouth and two ears for a reason. And so it's been a philosophy of mine, especially, one other thing I'd say real quick, Molly, is that my mom taught me to learn from people who have been successful or elders. I really like to pick people's brain that have done it. And I did that from a young age. And starting in this industry, I just had great mentors because I listened to what they say. And I feel like they're giving you the shortcut to success, because you're going, okay, they tried that didn't work. Why didn't it work? Okay, I get that. Next thing. And it's just not going down all these avenues, not learning. So anyway, it was a great experience. And I'm thankful to Tony to this day.
Yeah, I think great people make great people. And so, yeah, very fortunate. And I would say, were you able to work directly with Tony through that? Because part of it too is just having the opportunity to see another person thrive and do what they do.
I did.
I've heard such great things about Tony. I've never met him in person, actually.
Oh, he's a treat. He's just an icon. And I've worked with some icons in my life. I think of Tony Moiso. I think of Dale Stewart. I think of today, John Shea. I am just so blessed to work with him as a chairman of our parent company. He's fantastic, and he was so gracious because we'd have lunch, sometimes when he was in, and he'd pop in and see how we're doing. And then when we wrapped up, we did a presentation to him, and just always been such a gracious man. And he's one of the few people that does the lost art of writing thank you notes or writing notes.
Okay.
Like, he helped my son and daughter-in-law when they were getting married, and I forget what it was. He did me a favor, and he sends me this handwritten note. And if I've had any success or something came up and he saw my name, I'll get a beautiful handwritten card from him. And that's just a dying art that I think I wish we had more of, because I love that. And I think that's just, I don't know. It's just a different time and place.
It's hard to throw away a handwritten note. I don't know. It's so different. And it really is. I really do keep handwritten notes. I think you're totally right. Absolutely. So I'm going to ask you a couple quick rounds of questions just about you.
Okay.
Tell me your favorite sport.
My favorite sport to play today is golf. I love watching USC football and Formula One racing. I've been a Formula One fan
Really?
for a long time, long before the Drive to Survive came out.
Have you done any racing?
I've done some on tracks, but not Formula One cars, and it's been for fun. So, but with a professional race car driver in coaching you, and it's a whole different deal. It's amazing to me, these athletes, these Formula One drivers are driving cars at 220 miles an hour and dodging things, and just their skill set and their eyesight and their hand-eye coordination is absolutely incredible. And so, yeah, that's some of the things the sports I like.
Super fun.
Used to love playing basketball.
And playing basketball.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard about your basketball skills.
Yeah, those are in the rearview mirror, though, Molly. Just so you know, it's been a long time.
I don't know. I've heard you're pretty good. What about favorite pastime? If you weren't at the office, what would you love to do?
100% with my family. My kids are now a little bit older, and I just love the people that they've become. I love spending time with my wife and our kids, including our daughter-in-law, and now we just have two granddaughters too. But my favorite thing is traveling with them. We've had some of our best times, and it doesn't need to be anything big, even if it's just sitting around, having a glass of wine or kicking back or a cocktail or whatever it is, or traveling. But we really have a great time together, and that to me is everything. I'm blessed. I still have my mom around. She's 93. And so I still chat with her daily on my way home. I like to just check in with her. And even if it's 10, 15 minutes and we have a good laugh, and she's the most positive person you've ever met. Years ago, USC football coach Pete Carroll, I remember somebody asked him, "Why are you so up? Why are you so happy all the time?" And he said, he goes, "I just always feel like something great is just about to happen." And that's my mom. She's always, every little thing is the greatest thing ever. And I think there's something to be said about how vibrant she is at 93, and, memory and everything. So
where does she get it? Where does she get it from, Bert? Where do you think she gets it from?
I think it's just the curiosity. I find people who are curious and are always learning. Like, the Jesuit high school I went to in San Francisco, the thing I loved about the Jesuits, were really big on two things. One is being, men and women for others, is what they preach. And the other was continuous learning. And I take that to the company with continuous learning and continuous improvement. I'm a huge believer that today I could be better than yesterday and tomorrow than today.
I agree.
And I think my mom is just that way. She's just so curious. She could go into a room and literally could tell you everything about everybody she met. And it's the craziest thing. Like, she'll come up and say, "Hey, did you know that, this person's wife or this person that they lived here?" And then it's like, "I've known these people for 30 years. I didn't know that." And she gets it in the matter of minutes. So just, there's a curiosity about people, about things. And I think it keeps her mind young, and there's a positivity. And I think those two things are a big part of her longevity.
They say that attitude has so much to do with longevity.
Yes.
I
agree.
Right. I have to believe you're right. So pause for a moment. Tell me your favorite moment with your father.
With my father?
Mm-hmm.
Because my dad worked so much, he would leave the house when he was assisting in surgery.
He was a surgeon.
No, he did surgery, but he assisted. He wasn't the main surgeon on it, but he did do surgeries, to be part of the surgeries. But he was a surgery and a general practitioner. And nice. I kind of had to make the time with my dad. So kind of the fun part was, I told you I loved automobiles, and when I was young, he would let me join him to on Saturday mornings. He would go visit all of his patients in the hospital, and I would go with him, and we'd spend time in the car, and maybe we'd get something to eat. But when he went in to see the patients, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I feel like
I know what you're going to say. That's the funniest part.
I would take the car out of the medical parking lot and drive it, 12, 13 years old. And I did that, Mollie. And
that
I'd come
is
back,
hilarious.
and the one thing I always prayed for was, I sure hope that parking spot is still there when I get back, because if it's too far somewhere else, he's going to go, "Wait a minute, how did it get over here?"
Now, did he know?
No, he didn't. Because what happened is I would tell him, "Hey, I moved the car because of the sun and whatever." And that was partially true. So I shouldn't say as fully, but I used to wash the cars for him. Again, just when I was younger, but I used to love driving it around the block to dry the car. So
that's so funny. Oh, that's so funny.
Anyway, but I enjoyed spending the time with him then, because he put in a lot of hours all the time. And, my dad was a good athlete when he was young, but he didn't come to many of our games or much of that until people started telling him, you should go watch your son play. And it's funny, he did start doing that in high school, and he couldn't believe how many people were there, and it was just different. So,
I think, and tell me if you think it's different, but I think our generation of parents, never had the guilt or the need to be as involved in their kids like we do for our kids, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I
really
agree.
is different.
It's 100% different. And Molly, after we'd be done at the hospital, he'd go make house calls. And my dad made house calls up till he was about 81 years old when he retired.
Oh my gosh.
And
Wow.
we were kind of saying, okay, it's probably time for him to retire, but I'd see him go into these, and he would sometimes take me into their home, and I just saw the love and care he gave people, and kind of that was what he did. And I didn't worry about, boy, he's not spending all this time with me or not. I know he was
Sure.
providing for us and trying to make for a better life, and so
And
it was all
thankful.
good.
Yeah, just really, yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Well, let's move into the Shea family of things.
Okay.
And obviously, how did you actually get introduced to Shea?
Well, I told you I got to connect the dots. When I graduated from UCLA, I went to work for Signature Homes. That gentleman, Stewart, we did it for 5 years, and we were building about 300 homes in Orange County, which at the time was pretty good. And then the big builders start coming into the market, and we were being financed, and that's kind of what was my job, to raise the financing. And I remember I used to go and deal with the bank called the Security Pacific Bank, and we did some debt and equity combined, and it really taught me a lot. But what happened was you couldn't be competitive with the big builders, because we'd go put a bid on a piece of property, and then we had to go get financing for a few months. And if they had the cash, they'd get it. And Dale, who rose to be president of NAHB, as a builder, he came in. I remember one strategic planning meeting we had in a January. He said, "Bert, what do you think we should do?" And he knew the answer, and he was just asking. He asked his son and myself, and it became pretty obvious that we should probably wind down the business. It was getting riskier. We couldn't get the land deals. There was more and more guarantees. The market was turning.
And what year was it, Bert?
That was 93, 94.
Oh yeah.
No, it was 92, and it became clear that was happening. And Molly, one of the greatest things I ever learned was from Dale, because he said, I think we should do it. He goes, I want you guys to do it. And I was kind of CFO, COO there at that company. I'd risen up to that after the 5 years I was there. And
nice.
One of the things he says, I'd like to wind this business down. And he said, I'd like to, he goes, I want to get every employee to have at least 2 months severance, in addition to giving them time to look for a job. I want every trade paid off. I want a warranty department to be set up for a year or 2 years to handle all of our customers, so that there's no issues. I want to build out the last communities. And he said, and try and do it and save as much as you can at the end, but do it right. And I remember saying to him, I can't believe we're going to do this. And we went from 69 employees down to 3. And I was one of the 3. And I said, Dale, this is incredible. You're doing this, and you're spending this much money to, his reputation was important to him. And he said to me, he said, Bert, money will buy you a great bed, but it won't buy you a good night's sleep. And I never forgot that.
That's
never
awesome.
forgot that, because he put his money where his mouth is, and he left with an impeccable reputation. And so we wound that down, and I had been kind of networking, because he said, you should probably look for something, because we're going to wind down. And he really appreciated. I got an opportunity to, KB Home was talking to me about doing something in Mexico for them. Again, we're not Mexican, but I speak Spanish fluently.
Sure.
But what I didn't say is, when my parents immigrated here, I didn't speak English until I was 5. And it was one of the greatest gifts. Yeah, it was one of the greatest gifts my parents could have ever given me, because English was my second language. Obviously now Spanish is my second language, but I really learned English from kindergarten and playing with kids in the street, at 4 or 5 years old.
Your English is perfect. Wow.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because my Spanish, when I go on job sites, I'm fluent, I could read it, write it, but when I go on job sites, if I really want to get to know what's happening on a job, I do it. And I talk to a lot of our workforce is Hispanic, and I get the real scoop as to what's going on in jobs. But
That's
but
great.
anyway,
They can't talk behind your back either, Bert, right? I mean,
no, and I don't always introduced that way too. I kind of like to float through. I hear the conversations, and I've only had to do that one time. And it wasn't personal, but it was about the group, and I had to correct the gentleman. So let's put it that way. But what ended up happening, Mollie, is that I when Signature wound down, KB Home, or back then it was Kaufman and Broad, was talking to me about running Mexico City because I was bilingual. I knew the home building, and they were on it. And I looked into it, and I just didn't feel that they had really thought through everything that needed to happen down there. And ultimately, I think what my concerns were came to fruition, and they got out of there. I never went down with them, but they kept calling and kept calling and kept calling. And I was looking at the time to relocate to Denver. I had looked at a bunch of places around the country. I just felt like California was expensive. It was the market wasn't great. It was tough. And they called me and I said, really, I'm not interested in Mexico, whatever. And they said, well, where else? And I said, I go to Colorado. They said, we are starting a division there right now. And so long story short, I ended up jumping in with them. It was with another gentleman, a great guy by the name of Andy Tchaikovsky, and we built it up. We bought like 13 communities in the first year and a half. And
did you start that division in Denver?
I was critical to the startup, but I wasn't the first employee. No.
Okay.
I was probably the third or fourth employee, maybe.
Nice. That's a great division in Denver. They do a great job there.
Yeah, no, and it moved on, and Andy moved on after a couple years. And so I was there, and I always served kind of, again, in a COO role. I did the financial side, but I also helped in, land acquisition. Our ops guy left. And so I took over ops for a short period of time. And so that was great. And within 3 years, we built it up to be one of the top builders in Metro Denver. I think we were like top 5 maybe in that period of time. Now, not everybody was there that's there today. Well, along came a call. I didn't usually take calls, but it was something came up at KB, and I thought, I've done this for 3 years. The public company thing, KB is a good company, but it's just, we don't have the same alignment. I kind of look at things a little bit longer term at that time. And I got a call, and the first call I got was from a national recruiter that wanted to start up a division. And he wouldn't tell me the company, but eventually it was Shea Homes. And so I went on the interviews. It went really well. I met with the Sheas, the 3 elder Sheas who ran the company at the time. And we hit it off great. And literally I became division president and ran that for about 6.5 years before taking this role.
That's great. So you were in Denver, and then from Denver, you came over to the CEO role, and then you came to California. Is that right?
Came back to California. Yeah.
So
and the big issue there, Mollie, was the only thing, there's a year after we started in 96. And in April of 97, John Shea called me and said, hey, have you ever heard of this little town or this project called Highlands Ranch? Right. And that was when we kind of dove in. And I said, John, that's like one of the largest master plan communities in the country.
Just a little bit.
And we ended up from April to August, it was 16, 18 hours a day, because we only had 5 to 7 employees at that time. And I was running all of the Colorado due diligence. They owned Mission Viejo, Aliso Viejo, and Highlands Ranch. And my partner in crime was Lane Marceau, who
I love Lane.
Yeah, Lane's great.
Great
And
guy.
Lane is now division president Northern
Yeah.
California for us, but he was in kind of a COO slash CFO role in our Southern California deal. So he ran all of the due diligence on Aliso Viejo and Mission Viejo to get the valuation. I ran the analysis on everything in Colorado, including commercial and residential. And we put our numbers together, put a bid in, and we were the successful bidder. And in August of 97, we closed on what was probably the biggest transaction in the country. It was about $500 million. And it was, we got Highlands Ranch, and what I ended up running was a 22,000 acre ranch community with the 16,000 homes had been built out at the time. It was zoned for 36,000 homes to be built. And we just wrapped it up, Mollie, last year, if you could believe that.
Wow.
We were done. And so it was quite the run. And we were the #1 master plan community, largest in the country for 2 or 3 years there in the late 90s. So it was quite a blow up from startup to big acquisition to big company. We instantly became a big developer builder in Denver.
That's pretty awesome. My nephew Ryan, a little plug for my nephew Ryan, actually lives in Highlands Ranch and loves it. It's so beautiful. Really.
I love Ryan already.
You guys did a great job. No, he has a beautiful home.
A lot of learning there, and a lot of what we learned earlier, what I learned in the master plan communities from Rancho Mission Viejo and in college helped, getting my MBA and doing that really helped.
I bet.
Things. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. So you've worked through a complete workout, disposition of a company. You've worked for a developer. You've worked for a builder. You've worked good times, tough times. Where did you learn the most in your career?
Unequivocally downtimes.
Yeah.
Unequivocally. And it's funny because Signature, where I, learned a lot. The reason I got the opportunity is because I was getting my, when I graduated, it was late 80s, it was 89. In 1990, things were like falling off the cliff. And there was a lot of the VPs there who had gotten these huge bonuses. I mean, to the point, I couldn't even imagine that type of money back then, because I paid my way through USC myself. I paid my way through UCLA myself, and I was up to here in debt. And it was the only time in my life that it was just the debt was overwhelming. And I remember thinking, I'll work for anything. And
that's why you probably work so hard.
Well, you do. You just do what you got to do. And I saw these guys, and they all had the coolest Mercedes cars, BMWs, the cool suits, the whole bit. And I remember thinking, you know what? I kind of felt like maybe they felt like they arrived and kind of forgot that it's a cyclical business. And so I learned a ton in winding down that company. I learned a ton in the 2006, 7, 8, that whole time frame too. And, when the wind's at your back, everybody's great. It's during those times and how you handle it that you really learn a lot. And hopefully we're better today because of what we learned. We're not perfect and we make our mistakes, but hopefully not the same ones.
Well, you certainly have to figure out a lot of stuff, right? You're not doing the same thing every day. That's
for sure.
So was there a point in your career where you were like, I've got this? Or like that turning point where something happened and you were like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to be the guy?
You know what? I'll tell you honestly, I think I've got an internal voice that doesn't ever let me feel like I've arrived. I just don't.
I know that about you. It makes me smile.
I just think it's kind of, when I think about my mom's mentality and just kind of how it's a bit of the immigrant's mentality, maybe, of just, this is an incredible opportunity. Don't blow it. Don't let things go that way. So I've never felt this is it. I've made it. I will tell you, I did have an eye opener the day we announced the Mission Viejo acquisition. And I became the president or whatever of that company and
Mhm.
Shea Homes Colorado as this kind of combined group. And we made the announcement, we made it to the press. We kind of told the team which ones were staying, which ones we were going to part with, and did that. And I remember walking back to my desk, my office, and there were messages from Wall Street Journal, LA Times, Denver Post, Rocky Mountain News, Bloomberg. It was just immediate media blitz. And I don't think I was ready for it. I think I did fine with it, but you're working so hard to get this deal done. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, this was big, right? It was really big. And it wasn't just big for us, it was big for news in the country. And so that was kind of a day I went, okay, this is kind of the next level. We got to up our game and got to get ready for this. This is different. And but I've enjoyed every minute of it. I actually enjoyed the pressure of that. And that was really fun to be able to do it. Not many people get a chance to do that. And I was really blessed to be able to do it.
Well, it sounds like you got your hardworking, work ethic from your father, but at the same time, that sort of adventure for life and, try to get everything you can out of it with your family from your mom. So
you know what, cool. Mollie, I think that's very astute. I think that's probably very, very true. Yeah,
you've got a nice blend of both of them. That's pretty neat for sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Well, let's go to Shea for the consumer. As you guys design homes and you're developing master plans and all of that, I mean, there's a lot of choices out there in the market today for sure. And what is the one thing about what you guys really try to do? And maybe even, I'm going to say secret sauce, do different, however you want to say that. What is it that Shea does different?
Well, I think there's a few things, Mollie. I can't give you just one, but let me start. We talked about the company. I think being private, being large, and having a long-term commitment, I think is more aligned. This is a tough business to be public and closing X number of units every quarter. I mean, those are families, they're moving into these homes, and it's a people business. I think it was Howard Schultz at Starbucks said, we're in the people business that happens to sell coffee. I feel like we're in the people business that happens to build and sell homes and create these incredible communities. So I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is what we just talked about. I think being a builder and developer, even our small communities, we think through what the community should feel like. It's not just go slap up the same plan over and over, and you're not thinking about how people are going to live. And then I think the real differentiator when it comes to the vertical house or the house itself is really, I'd say, three things. One is design. We have a tremendous asset in Howard Englander, who has been an icon in this industry forever. And we were able to convince him to be with us full time, and he's amazing. So he helps us a lot on the architecture, but we put a lot of time in the design side to livability. Not just let's come out with the coolest thing, but how is this going to function? How are people going to live? So I think first I'd say design. Second, I'd say quality. When you look at our parent company, their affiliates going back with the same family go back to 1881.
I was going to ask you about that. They built something small back then, right?
Yeah, they built the Golden Gate Bridge, everything vertical you see down into the water, the piers, and vertical on the Golden Gate Bridge, the vertical on the Bay Bridge. They were the lead contractor with 6 other groups or 5 other companies on the Hoover Dam. They've done big things that have stood the test of time. And so quality is in the family's DNA. And that's something that we put a lot of emphasis and time on. Again, we're not perfect. This is a custom built home. There's very few things, I don't mean custom like custom home, but there's not many products that are built by hand today. And we have a lot of hands that touch that home from the time it goes up. And that's going to change in the future. But we take a lot of pride in the quality. And then last to me is probably the most important, and that's the experience. We've always been one of the the top, if not the leader for many years on the customer service side, that we stopped comparing and stopped being part of the global survey thing, because I think we were getting too caught up in, okay, so we're doing great, so we don't need to do much else. And we were getting too caught up in our scores have gone down a tenth of a point or gone up a 0.2 of a point, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And it kind of lost track of what is really the voice of the customer. What are they saying? What are they telling us? What are they open-ended us to? And would they refer us to somebody else? And we're really proud of that, because we get a lot of referrals, and we take what they tell us, and it's a learning book for the next home, the next community, the next whatever we do. And we have a feedback loop that if somebody says, the towel holders in this bathroom don't work because somebody didn't think about this, we'll immediately go back and start doing that different in the others. And so it just makes you a lot better builder when you don't get caught up in just looking at the scoreboard and focus on the process.
You know what, it's interesting to me too, because that comes through in all of your employees too, right? I mean, I've worked with so many different ones in different parts of the country, and they're all just genuinely great. I mean, it's neat.
Well, Mollie, one thing on that note, the people that I am blessed to work with every day are just incredible, and they're just really, really good people, and it's amazing. And then you look at what our active lifestyle group does. I mean, Mollie, you've worked with them. You see the places that they create,
Awesome.
and the lifestyle that they create, which is very different. It's that buyer buys community and then house second. Most of our family buyers buy a home in a neighborhood, but it's home first, community second. There, it's really community and the home. And I love the people I work with. It really makes work fun. And I enjoy it because I get the interaction. These are some very good friends. I've got to hold them accountable too, but we find that balance, and it's awesome.
And it definitely shows up in your product, and agreed. I think it shows up in your people. I don't think I've ever had a bad experience with anybody or company. Everybody's just like super nice, just like you are. On that note, we're going to end with your favorite sort of inspirational leaders. And I'm going to ask you to give me like maybe one. Well, I think I know one of them or two of them probably very clearly, kind of as you were growing up, but who are your mentors today? Like, I mean, how did you get to be, you have one of the best attitudes of anybody I've ever known. How did you get there? And part of it, I think I just learned in this interview, but.
You know what, I've just been surrounded by great people. I mean, one of the guys I work with in the Shea family, the next generation, is Peter Shea Jr. And he's just when I look at people who are great leaders, I look, okay, what makes them great leaders? To me, passionate about what they do, right? Mm-hmm. Super high integrity. Everybody I've mentioned earlier today, high integrity. They're really good listeners. I would say they value their people is probably one of the top priorities that I see. And I think it's important. People just want to feel valued. I think at the end of the day, it's not difficult. I think we make business a lot more difficult than it needs to be. Mm-hmm. Treat people like you want to be treated, set the goal, create a cultural framework with values, kind of set up the guardrails. And if you're within the guardrails, do it your way. If not, do it the other way. And I've been really fortunate to work with just incredible people. Tony Moiso, Dale Stewart, John Shea is one of the smartest, most inquisitive, generous, humble. I mean, what he gives back to the community is unbelievable. But because he's so humble, he doesn't like to talk about it. And it's a bit of a catch-22, because if people knew how much it is, it's astonishing, and it's incredible. And I'm just proud to be affiliated with it. I think if I looked outside, I've always loved John Wooden.
Me too.
I just think that, you don't win, what did he win? 10 championships in like 12 years. I just don't see that being repeated, but he was passionate. He focused on the little things. Like the thing I always loved about him was he had that knack for, let's take care of every detail and the score takes care of itself, right?
Mhm.
Bill Walsh of the 49ers wrote a book called The Score Takes Care of Itself. But Wooden, first practice, what you do is you teach them to put their socks on, how to put them on accurately, and how to tie your shoes so that they never lost a game, or at the end of a game, somebody's shoes became untied or they had blisters and they couldn't play in the next game. That's passion for details. And I think when you're designing a home, designing a community, managing people, it's the details and the small elements that count. And I think that's something that I love in leaders, and a lot of the people in our company have that. And I'm just, again, blessed to work with them.
Well, here's a pretty neat thing, and I can say this with all honesty. I think you're now the person who might speak with a John Wooden. I mean, you've had some pretty amazing speaking engagements and definitely charismatic, and, from all the things you've done with City of Hope and Homemade and all of those things. I mean, it's pretty impressive. So I can't thank you enough for taking this interview. I can't thank you enough for all that you do in the industry and the people around you, and, just with Shea, and frankly, the other parts of you that I know just with your family. I mean, it's pretty impressive. So Bert, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a huge pleasure to have you here with this Inspirational Leadership series. We look for only the best, and you're certainly a part of that. And we just appreciate the time today.
Thank you, Molly. You know what? I'm super appreciative and humbled to be here. And thanks to you for doing this. I think it's great. Hopefully a lot of the younger folks will get something out of it. But Molly, thanks to all your contributions in the industry. I think about how many master plans and home designs and, whether projects were built or not, came down to you. And I think you do a great job in the industry. So thank you for that. And it's always good to see you.
It was such a pleasure.